Your identity is your most valuable asset, yet it's being sold for pennies on the dark web. Imagine waking up to find your bank account drained and your reputation hijacked by an AI-powered ghost. CEO Eva Velasquez reveals why even the most savvy entrepreneurs are vulnerable and the one frozen secret that could save your life's work. Don't wait until you're the next victim. Listen now.
The next thing I tell people to do is use stronger passwords. A lot of people are still using the same easy password over multiple accounts. And even if you think you're clever, one of the most common passwords, monkey, Jesus, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they're still in the top 10 passwords. You're not being clever. Use something unique and don't duplicate it across multiple accounts.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Break Free podcast, where we're interviewing business leaders and entrepreneurs and how they're making this world a better place. Today, we have with us Eva Velasquez. Eva, welcome to the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited to have this conversation.
This podcast is brought to you by ISU Corp. Are you having trouble with your software projects? Is there a project that's taking too long or a technology you can't handle? We can help. We are ISU Corp, experts in custom software since 2005. With almost 20 years of experience, we can solve any technical problem from new businesses to satellite software. We've done it all. Let us turn your ideas into reality. Learn more about how we can help by visiting us at www.isucorp.ca. Your solution starts here.
Eva, can you give me, for the audience, your full name, where do you live, and what do you do for a living?
I'm Eva Velasquez, and I am a happy resident of San Diego, California, and I am the CEO of the Identity Theft Resource Center, a nonprofit charity organization that envisions a world where people have control over their identities, access to recovery services, and where misuse of those identities is a rarity.
Isn't that insane that we even have to have this type of businesses nowadays? And it's like, I cannot believe that because of technology, people can steal someone's identity and just wreck up your life, right?
Well, and the interesting thing is we've been around for 25 years. It was necessary in 1999, but it is imperative that we have this now because identity is everywhere. Our identities are being used in ways that are obvious to us, applying for a credit card or a student loan, opening a bank account, but also behind the scenes, tracking your ride share, where you go, frequently, all of that is part of our identity, usernames, passwords, and all of that can be compromised. And if it gets in the hands of the wrong person, can be used for their gain, but it's to your detriment. So it is sad that that's the world we live in, where we need these services, but with the technology and all of that convenience and all of the transactions and all of the things that those afford, there's always going to be bad actors that want to take advantage of that.
Something that happened to me recently, it wasn't a full identity theft, but it was very scary. These people hijacked the domain name of a consulting agency. They hijacked the name of the person, the CEO there, one of the principals, and they hijacked my name, my email address, and my signature. And they sent an email to my controller saying to please process the payment for $10,000.
Wire money.
To wire money. But when you look at the email history had me saying, oh, yes, please, I authorize this payment with my signature, with my name. And when you looked at the URL, the company identity they stole, all they did is they removed one S from the domain name. So if you just overlook at it, it's like, for sure, this is clear. Thank God they came and checked with me, because it seemed weird that it wasn't in the books already, So we were able to stop it. But imagine like how many people get fooled every day, and it's thousands and thousands of dollars.
A lot of people, unfortunately, because the level of sophistication to what you just described, that is happening on an ongoing basis, and we're being deluged with that, all of that incoming communication, all of these emails, all of these phone calls, all of these text messages. And with AI, it has afforded all of these bad actors a level of sophistication that they don't themselves have to have. They've outsourced that ability and that sophistication for next to nothing in costs to them, but they can develop letter perfect solicitations and schemes, and then spoof, URLs and email addresses. And a lot of that research and background checking on how to make these solicitations appear legitimate, that's all been automated by AI. So as bad as things were before, because there was a lot of this going on before, it has now been just elevated and escalated. So we're unfortunately going to continue to see a lot more growth, and that's why the ITRC exists. And it is a little scary, but there's also some hope too. So
for sure, and you need to be protected, right? So one of the things that I do is I subscribe to make sure that my credit card my credit score is intact, right? So I have a subscription that tells me who's using my credit at any time, because that's the first that they do, right? They try to actually create credit on your behalf.
they can.
Right? It's crazy. It's crazy, Eva. I'm a man of faith. I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ as my savior. And the moral law has two of the biggest laws there. Some of the biggest laws is you shall not steal and you shall not lie. And when your identity theft is stolen, it has those two ingrained on it, right?
Well, I've been in the fraud space for decades. And so I have always had issues with thieves and liars. I'm formerly law enforcement, so I used to investigate and try to find the bad guy and stop him from doing harm to other people. And that was very, very rewarding and very important. But it also taught me, my time at the DA's office taught me that we tend to be dismissive of the experience when it comes to economic crime victims, so victims of identity theft, fraud, cyber crime, scams, all of those types of crimes. They have a huge negative impact on the victims, but we don't have a lot of resources for this victim population. And that's why I shifted over into victim services, because I just felt like there was this dearth of help out there for people, unless you paid for it, which I find very insulting for people who have just had their financial life either ruined or at least severely impacted, to then say, well, it's your problem, you need to pay for it. So that's why services like ITRC exist. And again, that's why I agree with you. I've never been a fan of thieves and liars, and unfortunately, it's never been easier to sort of break into that profession, if we can call it a profession, because there's so many tools out there. It doesn't require any skill anymore. The bar to entry to get into perpetrating all of these various types of fraud, when I started my career, you at least had to walk the walk and talk the talk. I was dealing with con men and con women who were out in the real world, and so they were having more face-to-face engagements, and they had to look the part, they had to act the part. It was harder to be a grifter. And now so much of this is digital and online. It doesn't require any degree of skill or savvy or charm or charisma. It just requires a little bit of seed money, and you can buy all of the data, all of the software, everything you need to become a career criminal.
That's horrible. So let's talk about you, Eva. You were in law enforcement first. So let's look back and see how you got into where you are. Where were you at the last year of high school, and what was in your mind? What did you want to do with your life?
Oh gosh, that's an interesting question, because the last year of high school, I was actually taking care of a new baby. I dropped out of high school in the 11th grade to have my daughter and to raise my daughter. And so I did start working full time at the DA's office at that time. So my high school and educational career was cut a little bit short, but I started learning on the job. And I found that after kind of moving up the ranks and doing different types of clerical, secretarial, and admin work, that I really wanted to get into investigations. And thankfully, there was a pathway for that. But I started working full time at a very young age.
That's amazing, and congratulations. We have a similar story with my wife. We started dating at 16, and we got pregnant at 17, and we got married at 18, and we moved to Canada at 19. Yes. Very short, right?
That sounds very much like my story, except I didn't move to Canada. I stayed in San Diego, got married, proceeded to have 2 more children to round out my family. So now I have 3 adult children, and I have been in this space. That's why I said I've been in this space for decades. A lot of work experience and on the job training and real world experience.
So how did you get, so once you were at the DA office, how did you get into that path? Did you have to go to special courses to get into that new job category?
Essentially, thankfully that at the time, there was a pathway for people that were interested but were not sworn peace officers to become investigative specialists. So essentially it was, we're going to be support for the DA investigators. And because there was such a strong need in places like economic crimes, in the fraud department, we actually carried a caseload. We would not ever be investigating violent crimes. That is something that requires a sworn peace officer. But with the economic crimes, it was more about putting puzzles together. And so I did receive a lot of the same training that police officers at the academy received, because I went and took a lot of those classes at the academy: investigative techniques, interview techniques, report writing for prosecution, all of those things that were pertinent to the job that I had. I got that on the job training. And then another big part of it was just having a department that said, hey, you really can do this work. We don't need a sworn peace officer to do this type of work. So let's give you the cases. You'll be supervised by a supervising DA investigator. I learned how to write my own search warrants. I learned how to write all my own subpoenas for records. I learned how to review that evidence, put it together, do interviews. I had to leverage some of the sworn peace officers. I couldn't serve my own search warrant, but I could tap a badge on the shoulder, and after I would go down to a judge and say, here's my probable cause, get that signed, I'd come back upstairs, go to a peace officer and say, okay, we need to get this in the rotation and I need you to serve it. It was a really amazing opportunity and very, very rewarding work. I enjoyed it very much. However, after 21 years at the office, I just felt like it was time for something different and time for a change. And I felt like we needed more education, more services for victims, and more in the area of helping people to prevent becoming a victim in the first place. And that's why I went down this path that I did. I had a brief stint at the Better Business Bureau after the DA's office, where I was looking at more the consumer protection education and issues and helping people in that way. I did that for about 5 years, but I landed at the ITRC almost 14 years ago when they were looking for new leadership. I'm not the founder. And like I said, the rest is 14 years of history. It's been also just as rewarding as the law enforcement career. And I also do have a really visceral understanding when we talk with law enforcement agencies and develop partnerships with them to provide these services. I understand how under-resourced they are and how challenging of a job it is.
Mm-hmm. Incredible. What a perfect match, right? You with all your history and your experience and this agency, needing a new leadership. Was it hard at the beginning? Like, what is specifically the type of services that you guys provide?
Well, we provide direct one-on-one recovery and risk minimization services to victims of identity crimes, things like identity theft and misuse, scams, frauds, cybercrime. And, was it hard at the beginning? Sure, it was very hard, but it's not like it gets that much easier. It is a hard mission to get people behind because we're a charity organization. So we survive on things like grants and donations in order to provide our services for free. And it's hard for us to compete when people are thinking about giving donations with places like Make-A-Wish or the ASPCA. I think it's just hard for people to put themselves in the shoes of a victim. I think it's also hard for people to think, well, shouldn't, government be providing that support? Why does a nonprofit exist? And government provides some level of support. We do have the Federal Trade Commission, but it's not enough. We need to have nonprofits like the ITRC, and we're the only national nonprofit that does this work. There are some smaller ones in different regions that help, but we're the only national in scope nonprofit that does this work and provides these services at absolutely no cost.
That's amazing, and thank you so much for your work. Because I can imagine, you just, your identity was stolen, you're in financial ruin, and then where do you find the money to protect yourself or to defend yourself or try to recover, right? How about
or even know where to start? To know where to start. That seems to be the biggest problem that we hear in the contact center was I didn't even know what to do. Sometimes if it's a single issue, like something happens with my credit card, people know, they go to their credit card company and it's usually resolved. But a lot of the cases that we hear about are complex cases with a lot of moving parts. There's multiple things going on all at once. And that's where people go, I just need somebody to hear this whole story, understand what I'm experiencing, and then tell me where to start and what order to take these steps in. And that's what we do. We don't take people's information and then do the work for them. A lot of the paid services will do that, but we don't do that. We just listen to the circumstances. Then we provide you with a plan and we hold your hand step by step throughout the entire process. And we feel that way you are empowered. Not only that you can handle this yourself and you can take care of yourself, but you're better educated to protect yourself in the future. And you know about what the risks and the vulnerabilities are, because unfortunately, we're all vulnerable. Every single person, just differently, depending on how you engage with the outside world, particularly the digital world. But no one is immune to this.
Yeah, and like Eva, I run a software consulting firm. I'm a computer scientist, and I was almost fooled with the example that I gave you at the beginning. Almost, like it was crazy that we were able to catch it. But about 2 years ago, we hired a new intern in the marketing team, and the first day of her work, somebody took my identity and sent her a text message saying, we're having this birthday party, first day of work.
Buy some gift cards. Yes.
Buy some gift cards. And she ended up spending $1,000, and she got into the phishing attack. And we had to refund her money. But it was like, we better educate our people, especially when they're new hires, because this is happening all the time. Right?
It is one of the things. Yes, I get spoofed all the time. We laugh about it now because my staff is constantly asked to buy gift cards, do something else. And so with every new hire that we have, it is part of the training that, look, you are going to get a message from the executive team asking you to buy something, do something. Don't do it. It's not real. And I even say when I onboard new people and I finally meet with new members of the team, it's like, I will never ask you to make a purchase for me.
Exactly.
I have a company credit card. I will take care of those things myself. And so if you get that, it's a scam. So I think we just have, but how hard is it to be aware of those vulnerabilities until you have the experience? We as an organization have the benefit of listening to people every day, knowing what they experience, so we know what our vulnerabilities are, or at least we have, I shouldn't say that because we're not immune either, but we have a better idea of what those vulnerabilities are because we have the benefit of that collective experience from the thousands of people that we help every year.
So, Eva, let's talk about prevention. What would you suggest people for our audience? How can you protect yourself? Like, what are the basic common steps that somebody needs to do in their life, in their digital life, in their personal life, so that they close doors and prevent these thieves from coming and stealing your identity?
The first one is strategic and an attitude, and the next ones I mentioned will be more tactical. The first thing I always encourage people to do is acknowledge that they're vulnerable, and this is something that you need to have a mindset around, and you need to think about that beforehand. Embrace skepticism. Don't trust everything that's incoming, and realize that cyber hygiene and protecting yourself, it's a practice. Just like we talk about, our physical hygiene. If you went to a doctor and said, how do I take care of my health and make sure that I'm healthy and robust? They wouldn't tell you to do one thing one time. They wouldn't say, oh, well, brush your teeth or shower. They would talk to you about small habits and steps, practices that you do every day that then add up to something bigger. And your cyber hygiene is something you need to think of that way. I'm going to do these small things until they're habits, and then it's going to be more robust because I'm thinking about my cyber hygiene every time I engage. From a practical standpoint, the top things that we always recommend people do is freeze your credit. Now, it's great that you have a product that gives you your credit score, but I am going to tell you that your credit score is not going to change instantaneously. It takes time for misuse for that credit score to go down, 30, 60, 90 days. Freezing your credit actually stops anyone from opening new accounts in your name, even if they have all of the data required. It is one of the most robust protections that you can take. So I encourage everyone.
I didn't know you could freeze your credit. How do you do that?
It's actually not that hard. It's a little bit tedious. We have a great tool on our website. It's called Frozen Pi. So you can visit idtheftcenter.org, go to Frozen Pi. It's this sort of one-stop shop where you get all of the information, all of the links to go to the major credit bureaus and go through the process. And for adults, you can do that online. It again, set aside some time, but you certainly don't have to set aside like half a day.
Right.
Now, I also encourage people to do this for their minor children. You can freeze the credit reports for your minor children. My caveat here is that's much more tedious. You do have to provide documentation, you do have to provide paper records, and you do have to demonstrate that you have the legal authority to act on behalf of those children. You can do it for dependent adults. Maybe if you're caring for aging parents, you can also do it for them as long as you can demonstrate that you have the legal authority to make that decision. The next thing I tell people to do is use stronger passwords. A lot of people are still using the same easy password over multiple accounts. And even if you think you're clever, one of the most common passwords, monkey, Jesus, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they're still in the top 10 passwords. You're not being clever. Use something unique and don't duplicate it across multiple accounts. And if that gets really cumbersome, it's hard to remember, then use a password manager. There's a lot of ones out there. If you can make effective use of that tool, by all means, embrace it. If you have to write them down, I would prefer that you write them down versus using the same easy password across multiple accounts.
Right.
Everything carries some risk. You're never going to get your risk to zero, but it's a far less risk for you to write those down on a piece of paper, store that in a secure location, than it is to use the same easy one-word password across all of your accounts.
And I think older people are more vulnerable, right? for example, grandma and grandpa, they will always try to use the lowest minimum amount of characters. Like, for example, my passwords sometimes are 25 characters long, and they have hexadecimal numbering in there, because I know how they track these things. And also, wherever I can, I use two-factor authentication.
Yes, that's the next. You beat me to it. That's the next step, is multi-factor authentication. But let me just respond to what you said about older people being more vulnerable. I don't think that's the case. I think that looking at demographics, age demographics in particular, there are a few common things we can pull out there, but the reality is that it's about your attitude and how you engage in the digital world. So it may be that there's some truth to the fact that older people are going, I can't remember long strings of characters, or I can't remember something that long. But then we have younger people who just have no interest in it. That's too slow, and I want to move faster. So they may have different attitudes, but the end result is the same. They're using the same easy password across multiple accounts. I encourage people to use a passphrase. It doesn't have to be gobbledygook if you don't want it to be. It can just be a memorable phrase to you for that account, or again, you can write it down. The multi-factor authentication is great. It is again another great tool because it adds that extra layer of security. And for the people listening who go, what is MFA? That's when you sign up for that extra layer of security, and then you get a one-time, every time you log in, you get a one-time use code, an OTP code. It can come to your phone, it can come to your email. A lot of banks have made it mandatory. Most healthcare portals, if you're logging into your doctor's office, at least the bigger ones, they've made it mandatory, but it's an option in a lot of places. And so I encourage people, wherever it's available, choose that option. And better yet, because the great news is hopefully someday we'll be done with passwords, use passkeys where they're available. They're super intuitive. If you log on and it says use a passkey, just click yes and follow the prompts. They're that easy to use, and you never have to remember a password again, because you're using your biometrics in order to access the systems, and you can't self-compromise that information because you don't know it. It actually cuts down on a number of different types of fraudulent vulnerabilities that we all have.
The one thing I would advise is that, like, if you use a passkey, what happened to me last time is that I was using two-factor authentication with Authy, with the fob, the app, and then I used the passkey because it prompted me, so I kept using the passkey, and then a few months later, the passkey was broken. Something happened that the link was broken, and I couldn't log in, but it gave me the option to go back to two-factor authentication. So thanks to that, I could actually go back into my account. Otherwise, I would have been locked out.
Oh, well, I'm glad. See, those redundancies work.
Right.
And so far, we've seen wide adoption of passkeys, and I think that's a good thing. For something that it's as new as it was, we were seeing, in some surveys that we conducted, we were seeing like a 30% adoption rate for the people that we surveyed, which was great news. So I do think people are getting the message that some of this, I need to protect myself. I don't want to give businesses and government a free pass and say that they don't have any obligation. I think they actually do. But I think this is a shared stakeholder responsibility. We all have a role to play. And for ourselves, we do have a role to educate ourselves about how the world works and how these transactions works if we're going to engage in them. If you're going to use the tools, getting a better understanding of how they work and how you can protect yourself just becomes part of, the life we live and how we live.
For sure. That's wonderful, Eva. Thank you so much. Half hour has gone by so fast. Thank you for your time, and I thank you for your service to your communities. I didn't know this was a non-for-profit that actually covered the whole nation. This is amazing. Right.
Well, I'm glad I was able to educate you. I'm glad I was able to educate your listeners. And please get involved, folks. If you need help, you know where to turn. And if you just want to build that understanding, sign up for our newsletter, just engage with us. You
Wonderful.
know, you can follow us on social media. We're out there. We're out there and we're ready to help.
If people like us like to ask more questions, are you on LinkedIn?
Yes, I am on LinkedIn, and I do some thought leadership there. And you can certainly ask me questions. You can reach out to ITRC at idtheftcenter.org. So it's our general email box. People reach out and ask us questions. You can live chat on our website if you have something specific. You're in the moment. You get that weird text message, you get that email, and you are following the advice of I'm going to be skeptical and sit back and think. You can phone a friend, and we can be that friend. So there's just so many different ways to get in touch with us.
Wonderful. Eva, thank you so much. God bless you and have a beautiful rest of the day.
Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks, everybody.
That's all for today's episode of the Break Free Podcast. Head on over to iTunes and subscribe to the show. Starting your own business can be tough, but it doesn't have to be. Visit davidmansilla.com to pick up a copy of the #1 international best-selling book, Breaking Out of Corporate Jail. Expand what you consider to be possible and reach your full potential. And join us on the next episode.